Coastside County Water District for Tuesday, October 12th, 7 p.m. And let's start with a roll call, please.
Director Muller.
Here.
Director Coverdale.
Here.
Director Michelson.
Here.
Vice President Feldman.
Here.
President Reynolds.
I am here. All right, why don't we move on to the Pledge of Allegiance? Oh, the flag, well done.
Oh, there's a flag.
I pledge.
All right, Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag
To the flag
of the United
of the
States of
United
America
States of America.
and to the republic
And to the republic
for which it stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation, under
under God,
Indivisible.
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Amen.
for all.
All right. Do we have any public comment at this time? I don't see any hands raised. All right. Well, without any public comment, we'll go forward to the consent calendar. Does anyone have anything they'd wish to either discuss or have pulled from the consent calendar?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir, Ken.
I have a comment about the consent calendar.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah. I've talked to Mary a couple times. I don't really know what a good way to do it is. I think if we're going to go into voluntary water conservation on request, something in the consent calendar, in a portion of the report, the headline, top of the heap. Because I've done some calculations, and while I think it's not negative, it's certainly not positive. So that's my comment.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand it. Could you explain that again?
Well, we're asking for 15% reduction in water use.
Yep.
I think it would be nice to see something in the consent calendar that we're approving, so we're really have it at the top of the heap, where we calculate how much we've conserved and whether we're meeting our goal or not.
Oh, okay. Sort of like a monthly report of how we're doing is comparing to that.
Yeah, and I think same way, we get the weekly report from Todd, and somewhere in that report, we just ought to have a line or something. I know I've talked to Mary about it a couple of times. I know she's talked to Kathleen, but I just wanted to put it out there for the board because I think we're the place that can really communicate how we're doing. And when it becomes mandatory, I think it'll be even more important that we have a couple of places where we emphasize. I'm sure Kathleen's going to report on it in her
She is.
report, but I just think it's that important.
Are you suggesting a line item in the consent calendar, like another alphabetical number like K, and
Yes.
it says something about the status of water savings and like that, or just something like that.
Yes.
So it's there in the minutes every meeting, yeah, or something. I
have a question, comment, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I see that, John. Go ahead with your comment.
Thank you. Well, on the consent calendar, I did review the monthly September 2021 claims, and staff did a wonderful job, as usual, putting that all together, and I appreciate that very much. And just to follow up with Director Coverdale's comments a minute ago, the cost of water that we are purchasing from San Francisco PUC is a huge expense for all of us, as we well know. And I think we're going to be looking at the end of the year here pretty quick on how much water we're buying. Staff can help me with that. And I was a little bit surprised. I didn't get a chance to talk to Mary regarding the City of Half Moon Bay encroachment permit that was $6,000 for our plans. So I just a comment about that. That's a pretty good chunk of money on that review and financial. So thank you very much. And we all know healthcare is going up for everyone also. So, but I did find the financial monthly financial claims in order, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chris, did you have any thoughts on Ken's comment?
Yeah, that's Ken. Did you mean you said voluntary? Did you mean to say mandatory? Mandatory is probably right around the corner. But yeah, either way, we should absolutely be tracking it. Put it more front and center instead of buried. And if not, the press will do it for us. So if that's where you're going, I absolutely believe we should do that.
I think Ken's got a good idea that if we are asking for a drought curtailment or reduction, it's kind of like, to me, the when there's a fire danger and they put that needle on the side of the billboard that says your current fire danger today, or some other community feedback. And I think that's a good idea, and maybe we should talk about something out on the front of the building that shows that thermometer or pointer index. But Patrick's probably going to tell us we're off topic, so we'll.
Actually, I'm not, because you actually have this item on your agenda under 6B. So if you want to talk about different ways to keep track of voluntary or mandatory conservation, you can do that.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it more in 6B, and I think Ken's raised a good idea. Let's start by starting with a approval for the consent calendar. We'll need a motion to adopt the consent calendar with light of the discussion we've had on it.
I'll move to adopt it.
Thank you, Bob. Do we have a second?
I will second it.
Thank you, John. Could we have a roll call, Denise?
Director Muller,
Yes.
Director Coverdale,
Yes.
Director Michelson,
Yes.
Vice President Feldman,
Yes.
President Reynolds.
Yes. All right, thank you. Do we have any directors who attended a meeting or have a comment? Chris?
Yep.
Yeah. So curtailment and drought are obviously the topics of the day. We haven't seen how far curtailment runs a really broad spectrum. We don't know how far they're going to take it, so everyone's kind of in a wait and see mode. But because of that is taking everyone's energy, the negotiated settlement is kind of on a back burner again. So it's not like we're making any headway with a negotiated settlement on the Tualamarre, which is unfortunate. But it does not come as a surprise. And then I think Mary may have something for us a little later, or Kathleen, because her information would be a little fresher than mine in that she meets with Bob Bosca after my meetings. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Ken, do you have I'm just working through the screen. I'll get to everybody. Ken, any comments?
The only comment I had was we got snow yesterday at the top of Nevada Falls in Yosemite. I was delighted to see it. So I wanted to bring my snow report in early this year.
Thank you. Bob, any meetings or comments?
Well, I guess it's a meeting of a sort. I met with Mary and James and Sean and some folks at the Nunez plant to see how construction was going and how our capital expenses were moving. And I was impressed with the progress thus far in about 2 months. I guess August 16th, it's about 2 months since they got going there, and they've got quite a bit already in the ground and working diligently. It looks like they're around 10% of the capital cost to date, or it looks like they're booking as much as that. And so I think, given all those things, it looks like things are happening, and it was pretty impressive. The guys have it under good control, the ranges on top of it, and I was pleased to have the opportunity to go up there and take a look at things again and re-educate myself. So hopefully things will continue to move along in a professional and priority manner as it has been so far. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sure staff is aware of this, but the California Special Districts has the $100 million COVID relief situation out there, and we have to apply for it by October 15th, I believe. And I just didn't know if staff was aware if there's any possibility for assistance from that relief fund.
Go ahead, Mary.
I've been looking into that. We also put in, last month I reported that we submitted a survey on the arrearages fund with the state. And it looks like we have an opportunity there. So we're going to be working on that this week, which is about, it could be a tune of about $30,000. Anyway, we'll, if we apply for that, we can't really apply for the other fund that you're talking about. And it really is a question of what COVID expenses would really qualify under the fund that you're talking about. So I think we're in the process of pursuing the arrearages fund.
Thank you, Barry, because I couldn't figure out that word. What does it mean?
Past due accounts.
Okay, boy, that's a big word. How about not paying your bill? Keep it simple. Thank you, Mary. I'll cross it out now.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to the general business, and considering considering approval of resolution 21-06, making findings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361 that proclaimed the state of emergency continues to impact the ability to meet safely in person. Mary.
Okay, so back on March 4th, 2020, Governor Newsom declared a state of emergency due to the threat of COVID, and we're still in that state. And then on March 17th, he issued an executive order suspending certain provisions of the Ralph-M. Act relating to teleconferencing, and thereby allowing the board to meet remotely. So then on June 11, 2021, the governor issued another executive order that specifying that the order remain until September 30th of 2021. The legislature got busy and put forth AB 361, which the governor signed in September, that it enables boards to continue to work remotely in the proclaimed state of emergency after September 30th. So by adopting the attached resolution, the board has considered the circumstances of the proclaimed state of emergency and finds that the state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members to meet safely in person. And state or local officials continue to impose or recommend measures to promote social distancing. So I'm sure Patrick is available to answer questions because he helped us put this resolution together. But what will happen is that we need to reaffirm this resolution every 30 days. So you'll be hearing about it every board meeting until we decide to meet in person. So Patrick, do you want to add anything there?
Great summary, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Certainly familiar with the bill.
Do any of the directors? Go ahead, Bob.
You had told us about this previously, and I guess we got literature from your folks about these laws and their impact. But my question is simply the fact that you have to reinitiate them, you have to recertify it every month. Does it mean you have to do another one of these resolutions every month, or you just have a motion to continue the resolution? I don't know how that works.
Yeah, great question. It's built into the statute that the board has to relook at the circumstances every 30 days. Our vision is you would adopt one resolution and then there would be a motion every 30 days, just kind of reaffirming the circumstance. We wouldn't have a resolution every board.
And the governor rejected another bill that extended this to some other broader, I mean, he did all kinds of stuff, but it was rejected because it required that the constituencies be over at 250K people, 250,000 people in order to be involved in it. And he felt that was, setting any limit was an unreasonable thing. That doesn't change anything we've done. This is still enforced. This still works the way we use it now. And so everything is the same as it was. That other thing was just not an issue to us. Correct?
Yeah, so I can answer that too. So there were two companion bills, AB 361, which passed and the governor signed. And what we're trying to do tonight is adopt a resolution to implement that because it will start in October. Previously, before October 1st, the district was operating under an executive order. So there's a few slight little modifications that this bill does and one of them is looking at it every 30 days that wasn't under the executive order. The bill that you're referring to, I think it was AB 339. I can't remember the exact number.
Right.
But yes, it was vetoed and it was not signed by the governor, and that would have applied certain things for much larger entities. But that veto doesn't impact AB 361.
Sure. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, do we have a motion to adopt this resolution?
I will.
I move to adopt the resolution. Do I have to read it or is it what it is?
All right, we can take that. A motion to adopt Resolution 21-06, making findings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361 that the proclaimed state of emergency continues to impact the ability to meet safely in person.
I second it.
All right, thank you, John.
Discussion?
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
If the previous law terminated on September 30th, aren't we already behaving illegally?
No. So it was the governor's executive order that expired on September 30th. And this law basically says you need to take some action within 30 days from the date you first meet in accordance with the law. So we're fine.
Oh, great. That's a real relief.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Denise, let's go ahead with a roll call, please.
Director Muller,
Yes.
Director Coverdale,
Aye.
Director Michelson,
Yes.
Vice President Feldman,
Yes.
President Reynolds.
I'll put that down as aye. All right, I've signed the paperwork. You probably don't want this copy with the hole punches in it, but I signed it.
I'll get you a new one.
All right, I signed it anyways. All right, let's go on to the water shortage advisory and public outreach update and our outreach summary. Go for it,
Hey.
Kathleen.
Good evening. So there's a lot of information in this staff report. I just want to briefly go over the background. So my staff report updates the water shortage advisory that we're currently in and the current drought conditions, including the impacts of the curtailments placed on the Tuolumne River that became effective on August 20th. Director Michelson alluded to those earlier. So most of California, including the watersheds that the district relies on for water supplies, remain in extreme or exceptional drought conditions. And this is according to the U.S. Drought Monitor. And I have an image of that on page 2 of the staff report. The district is currently not meeting the 15% reduction in purchases from SFPUC as requested by San Francisco Water. These again are voluntary, it's a voluntary request, but we are not meeting that request. Last month, the district only decreased its purchases from the same period last year by 3.9%. There's the other request, again, voluntary from the governor that that individuals, our customers, reduce their customer consumption by 15%. And we, again, when you're comparing September 21 to September 20, we actually saw an increase in purchases of about 3%. So as far as outreach, this last month, the district sent written notifications by either email or mail, depending on what information we have on our customers, to about 1,400 single-family customers. And those single-family customers were in Tier 3, which is our highest residential tier for billing purposes. And the notice just kind of reminded them of that we're in a water shortage advisory and asked them to conserve water. So going back to the curtailments, with the curtailments being imposed on SFPUC and on their Tuolumne River diversions, San Francisco Water informed BOSCA that it plans on bringing a declaration of a water supply emergency on November 9th to the commission, to their commission, the SFPUC, the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. They will recommend to the SFPUC, the commission, that voluntary measures still be in place. However, this emergency declaration will still trigger the implementation of Tier 1 and Tier 2 agreements for water shortages up to 20%. So what this means, the Tier 1, Tier 2 agreements, it means that the available water that San Francisco has in the regional water system will be allocated first between San Francisco's retail and wholesale customers based on the Tier 1 agreement. And then it will be allocated among all the BOSCA wholesale customers, including San Jose and Santa Clara, based on the Tier 2 agreement. So with this information from San Francisco, BOSCA calculated the allocations among the BOSCA agencies, basically the Tier 2 allocations. And we have been informed that Coastside's allocation, if San Francisco, the SFPUC declares this emergency supply, water supply emergency, I should say, would be, our allocation would be 0.92 million gallons per day. So currently we're averaging about 1.8 million gallons per day. So as long as we're 100% reliant on San Francisco, that would be a 50% reduction in water supply. So based on this information that we got from BOSCA and San Francisco, staff is planning we're working on an ordinance, and if on November 9th, if the SFPUC adopts this emergency, this water supply emergency, then district staff will bring to the board an ordinance with mandatory restrictions and prohibitions for our customers, so that we can try to meet the new allocation that we will get. So it's a little confusing that it still, in theory, would be voluntary, depending on what the commission decides. They could decide they want it mandatory, but San Francisco Water staff is recommending it remain voluntary. San Francisco said that they're going to track compliance monthly and also on the fiscal year. And they will look at the individual agencies and if they went over their allocation and determine at the end of the fiscal year if any penalties would be imposed on that customer, that wholesale customer. So, so we have to worry about our, we have to look at the cumulative water consumption over the fiscal year, along with, our day-to-day purchases from San Francisco. Basically that, if you have any questions, I know it's a bit confusing and it's a lot of information to absorb. But we would be, if the emergency declaration is declared by San Francisco, the SFPUC, then we sometime after November 9th, staff would bring to the board an ordinance and we would go into mandatory restrictions and prohibitions for our customers.
You're talking November 9th, and it would go from 1.8 million gallons per day to 0.92, did you say? 1/2? And that would be by the end of this fiscal year. That's the end of 22 in June 22. The average for the 5 months we've already had and 7 to go wouldn't have to be 0.92 because you'd already used a lot, or would it still have to be 1/2 of all of it?
No, so it would only, our allocation would be affected depending on what this emergency declaration
November
looks like.
9th, let's say.
Starting
that day.
It could start that day, or they could have it start January 1st, or they could.
That's pretty heavy stuff. Unless my math is not right, and that's pretty dramatic. Let's assume that happens. Because unless we get lots of rain, it may not. The other thing I noticed on your report that we're doing 3.9% reduction, not near 15%, that all the high rollers were residential, multi-dwelling, recreational, marine, and some irrigation. All these people actually increased their use. I think Ken's point early on was the barometer ain't out there to show them that we're nowhere close to meeting anything like the target, and that we got to do something dramatic to tell people that they got to get cracking because it's not going to be pretty. Now, putting it on the wall of the building to me is, I'll do anything. I'll put signs in every neighborhood with thermometers on them. Whatever you need to do to get outreach, you got to do it, like an election. I don't know where you got to get permission, but people don't get it. They're not getting it, and we're nowhere near even the 15%. So I got really nervous when I saw that, and especially where the residential were increasing their use. I understand hotels, the other things are down because of COVID's effects. They're all below, the good numbers, but that's going to change too potentially. So I'm just nervous. We got to do something dramatic to get the word out in a very visible way that you got to stop watering your lawns, guys. You got to stop doing stuff that you're doing and increasing use rather than decreasing use. So we're going to be in really big trouble come November, December, January, when we're going to cut you by 50%, and then what? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. They may do it anyway, but we've got to get them start to think about doing it because it's going to get really tough. Thank you.
Go ahead, John. You're still muted, John. You're still muted, John.
You're muted.
John, you're muted.
There you go.
No luck yet?
Okay.
Now we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Just quickly, I think it was a wonderful report, very frightening, as the vice chair just commented. I've been a little concerned about dust control that construction firms are using. That's a lot of water going out for dust control. And I'm not going to name names, but I can sense where it's going. And in agriculture, it's got to be because of Bay City no longer in operation. Is that true, Kathleen, or staff?
Yes, I would assume, Bay City was a big chunk that we lost in agriculture, yes.
Yeah, but I think, as we all agree, I'm sure that it's a very serious situation. They're talking some rain maybe next week or so, but we have a long way to go, but we have to be on the forefront, as the vice chair said, and put it out there and tell people this is not a joke. And I agree with them there, and I think it's a wonderful report. And my final question would be, would it be appropriate if the district attended that November 9th meeting at San Francisco?
It's going to be virtual. And yeah, I probably will have to miss our regular board meeting on November 9th. If I think it falls on the same day.
It does, it's a Tuesday.
Yeah, I might have, and I will attend it virtually.
Kathleen, any idea why the Harbor District's gone up so much? I would thought they'd be a fairly consistent user.
You know, the Harbor District has some peaks depending on, you know, if it's salmon season or crab season. You know, we do see peaks of, you know, a pattern from the Harbor District. So that actually didn't surprise me. Yes, Mary.
I'm sorry. When I look at your chart, I think you're reading it backwards. You're seeing the first column is September 2020, and the next column is September 2021. So you're actually seeing that the decreases in usage are really showing positive. So like residential has saved 12%, which is great.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I take everything back. I went it backwards.
And then
I thought it was increased somehow. I got it back.
Yeah.
But then everybody else has really gone over the top. Then I'm sorry. Then the real people that are commercial, restaurant, hotels, motels, schools, agriculture, irrigation, non-residential, fire, everything else. Yeah, right. Okay. The ones I mentioned are all doing that job.
Yeah. So it's. Yeah, the negative number means they actually increased their water use.
Well, then we got to put messages out where they see them or something. They got to see bubbles with big red thermometers. I don't know who the hell you're going to show them to.
Yeah. Oh,
you're off.
Yeah.
Chris,
you're muted.
In defense of the restaurants, 2020 was COVID.
Yeah.
So
yeah, okay.
In defense of the restaurants, 2020 was COVID, so it's not a real comparison. It looks pretty.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, it looks horrific when you see 32, but they were mostly.
The data is hard to interpret. I understand.
Yeah, and then you throw in the weather, so there's a lot of variables. It's not as clean as it looks on paper.
Okay, I don't know. I just 3.9 isn't 15.
No.
So then.
It may be a different weight than I thought, but it still seems like somebody's got to know that we got a problem and we got to watch ourselves. That's always, man.
But a case in point is the biggest number here would then be irrigation non-residential.
Yeah. So
I think that then we come back to we need better messaging to address irrigation non-residential. As I scan this, we have a residential went up 3.9 million gallons, and the next one behind that was irrigation non-residential. So what about getting a thermometer or a big pointer that we put up on the building that says, hey, you're not where you're supposed to be, and this is what you should be doing? How about it, Kathleen? Can we do it?
We can do it. It'll take a little carpentry work and a little creativity and some, but we can do it. I was thinking of waiting till after November 9th when we see what the change is going to be, because I don't want to spend all this time and effort on something and then scrap it and start over again. But yeah, we definitely could do something visual like that.
How about we start the planning process now so that we're ready to implement and deploy it when San Francisco makes their decision? Because if you do like the fire department does and have that movable needle, then you could set the goal and paint the red where the new red line is and say, hey, this is what we're going for. I see Ken has a comment. Let's go with Ken's comment, please.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Thank you. You know, Mary, you're going to speak to Rotary, isn't that I think that's coming up. I think we have to go to the newspaper, regardless of what SFPUC does. Hey, we're currently in a condition where we've been asking, and maybe not publicly enough, for a 15% voluntary reduction. So we really want the news to cover Mary's talk, if it hasn't already occurred. And I think we want to put it in the paper right now. And I don't think it's a good idea to wait another month. And the reason why is it just kind of kicks it down the road. And then if it's less horrific, that's great. We don't have to report how horrific it could be. We could say that it's possible that it could be, even more complicated than we ever expected. I really think we've got to get on it now. And, Kathleen, I think, and Mary have decided to withhold the planting at the office improvement at the district office. And I think that's something we ought to publicize, that we're delaying installing plants. We're delaying installing irrigation until we know that there's going to be adequate water for that. I think these are all really good stories. Yep. And I think it's a hard time right now to get people's attention because it's Halloween. So everyone's excited and, buying costumes and getting candy and doing all the goodies. But, and I agree with all that. I think we ought to party every day of the week. But I think we got to get on it now. And the reason I say that is because I don't see the reduction. I don't think the numbers are horrible. When I did some rough production calculations, I think we're saving water. But the comparison's poor, as Chris points out. And so I think these are just all real issues that we're facing. And I think we have to ask our neighbors and our friends and our local citizens help. Because if it does get serious, and we go from 0.8, did you say, to 0.92?
Yeah. Wow.
I'm going to start.
Well, so, I mean, we can, so one of the things, that staff struggles with, or I struggle with, I should say, is targeting the right customers for the cutback. I don't want to panic our customers who are already in tier 1 that are already doing a good job saving. So I've been trying to target the messaging to those in the tier 3. Obviously, I'm not seeing the results I would like from that. So I have to rethink that because not everyone needs to save 15%. We already have a base of customers that, are in tier 1 and are using less than 50 gallons per day. So I want to get to those customers who are in the upper tier 2 and tier 3. They have the most, that they could cut back. They're the irrigators that could have more efficient irrigation or irrigate less. So, so the outreach can be, so I've been trying to do it a little more directed, but maybe I need to rethink that. And that's a very good idea about the plantings for the district headquarters. I was going to put up a sign when we're all done explaining that the landscape will come when the drought is over. So I think that would be good messaging, and we do plan on doing that.
Again, I appreciate that the customers have, I read it wrong, but they've made the effort. There's more effort than I had originally perceived. And so I think we need to focus, as Ken says, and as others have said, on the ones that are not necessarily doing their part, whatever that means, and you know that better than me. However, those that still haven't reached 15%, and there are them too amongst our residents, need to continue to understand that they must do that being close isn't enough. We have to get it done. And so there is some need to still continue to press that group as well, because they're responsible for nearly 38 million gallons per day of the 58 million. And so there's a lot of water there, and if they get another couple of 2%, even or 3%, it starts to really make a difference. Whereas all these others, even if they cut their use in half, some of them. It's not going to make that big a difference. So they're doing all right. They're trying their best, and I appreciate that. But I think there's still more to be done, and we still have to make it clear that we're not out of the woods, and please try hard, or if you're not doing the best you can. So it's not over until it's over. That's all I'm trying to say. Thank you. Sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks. So, Kathleen, you did touch on it, the 50 gallons per person per day number. At some point when we really go mandatory, people will be coming to us and potentially appealing, because there are a number of households on this coast side. You take a Moyer and Greenhouse that possibly has 10, 12 residents. How do we take that into account? How do we make this equitable? I mean, do we have an accurate resident, number per home?
We do ask for that when people sign up. How accurate it is, I don't know. And then we also have an estimate for our total population, so that's taken into account. I looked at past droughts mandatory, what the district did. They capped it at 6 people per single family home or per dwelling. So that's what we would have to do. There would have to be some cap on the number of people per dwelling or single family home.
But legitimately, there probably are homes with more than 6 people. And so it becomes an equity issue. And I'm sure we're going to hear about it from one of those customers. It's not going to be pretty when we go to mandatory.
It's not going to be pretty.
No, staff realizes that.
We're all going to be in a tough situation. Okay, thanks.
Well, let me just jump in.
Go ahead, John.
I have a saying here on the wall that said, good leaders make tough decisions. So we want to be leaders, we got to make tough decisions. Simple as that.
Okay. I think I would agree with the general comments that seem to be trending from the board, that I think we do want to start getting the message out now. I think there's a latency in between when we start advertising and when people actually get around to changing their irrigation controllers. It does seem like the irrigation non-residential group, which has had a significant, basically it's almost 3 million gallons increase. That should be a group that should be easy to target and outreach. And I would fully endorse that, being very sensitive that in the past, when we've had droughts, when we start our official campaign, it takes a while for the community to respond and react to that. So I think that I would agree with the general consensus that that's where we should start going. Any other comments, and then we'll close this subject.
Good report, Jeff.
Thank you. Yeah, and thanks for working on this, Kathleen. I realize this is an evolving topic, and we buy our water from San Francisco, and we're very dependent on what they feed us for information. But thank you for monitoring it and preaching it out to the rest of us. All right, we have an approval of amendment to professional services with EKI Environment and Water, Inc. for additional design and construction support services for the Miramontes Point Road water main replacement project to include the Moon Ridge neighborhood. Mary, this would be you.
Yeah, actually, I may give
Glenn,
this
did you skip one?
Yeah, we skipped one.
I did?
Yeah.
Stand by. Oh, my apologies. I turned too many pages. Okay. Should we go to the approval of professional services of Balance Hydrologic, our annual renewal? This is annual, isn't it? Do we do this every year?
Yes, this is annual. Starting with water year 2011, the district has annually engaged Balance Hydrologics to conduct gauging on Denniston and San Vicente Creeks, to monitor groundwater and to provide some data analysis. So to be able to provide continuity of data collection during water cycles has been critical to the district, and we're constantly asked for this information. So this is really plays an important piece as we are trying to secure water rights on these streams. So I would like the task board to approve the agreement for water year 2022 for $99,412 estimated time and materials. I will add in the recent year, they've haven't spent as much as their contract, but they pretty much consistently go from year to year. So last year the contract was $98,162.
All right. Do we have any comments, Chris, Ken?
Real quickly, Mary's absolutely right. This is how we get permits, good data, and this is towards that end. And this is what we're supposed to be doing. So this is clearly the right thing, and we should just continue to do this indefinitely. Thanks.
Ken, go ahead.
I would really appreciate, I don't know if how difficult it is, but I would just love to see a 10-year graph showing what we think the flow is. I mean, we've got all this data. It'd be really nice to see a picture of it so we could have some sense of what they're telling us is flowing through there. Because at some point we're gonna have to spend a lot of money and make the tough that John's talking about of whether we're going to go ahead and really try to perfect our rights on San Vicente. The other comment I would like to make is I've never actually hiked up that ridge line before. I don't know how many of you have, but you can actually hike up the ridge from the little horse farm there off of Etheldor, I guess it is. And you can walk right up and look at both of the watersheds. It's pretty cool. You can look right down the Denison watershed, and you can look down the other side and see the San Vicente. And I would urge you, if you've never done it, to take that hike. It's beautiful. It's fairly pristine, and it's very interesting to see how different those two watersheds really are.
Excellent. Thank you, Ken. Bob, any comments?
No, I'm fine. I would expect at some point forward, I agree with Ken, getting some kind of maybe historical perception of what this buys us and what that means as far as meeting our obligations for this permitting. Maybe an update at some point about San Vicente.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
John, any comments?
No, if there's no further, I would move to approve this agenda item.
Excellent. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Nope.
Okay. We'll give Chris this one because, Bob, you've already done one, but thank you. All right. Denise, let's go with a roll call, please. And you're muted, Denise.
Director Muller.
My history is aye. I said yes earlier, but I'm going to stick with aye, Mr. Chair.
Director Coverdale.
I will join you. Aye.
Director Michelson.
Yes.
Vice President Feldman.
Yes.
President Reynolds.
Well, then I'd like to make it unanimous, so I'll say aye as well.
Oh, we got him.
All right. Thank you all. Excellent. All right. Mary, we now go back to the item that we was before, and then it was back, and now it's again. The approval of the amendment for professional service agreement with the EKI Environmental Water for additional design and construction support services for Miramontes Point Water Main Replacement Project to include Moon Ridge neighborhood.
James will take it away.
Go, James.
Thank you, Mary.
Hey, James, how come the water level in your background hasn't dropped at all? I think that reservoir has been falling.
Yeah, I need to have Mary send me up there for a new picture. Maybe we'd send Kathleen. We'll do a vote who gets to go.
All right.
But yeah, I should do that on all my Cody's free time. Back in July, the board approved a design contract with EKI to do the design work to replace the 10-inch ductile iron main between the Alves tank and the Miramontes tank. Since that happened, we've already had a couple failures on the 10-inch, and we've also had one inside the Moonridge neighborhood. We're being as positive we could about it, and Darren and I talked about it, and we do think the soils out there are corrosive due to the nature of the failure over on Rose Road. It appears to be the same soil conditions that are causing this problem. So we've kind of reevaluated and decided that we need to replace the neighborhoods as well. I would hate to do a several $million project, go from Alves to Miramontes and leave that neighborhood out and then have those pipes to start to pop. When they fail, it's pretty catastrophic. They're fist-sized holes in these pipes. So there's a lot of residents at risk. We asked EKI to update or give us an amended proposal for the additional line work. The original contract was for 3,400 feet roughly of 10-inch water main. And the original amount for their design, construction support and bid support was $116,800. There's an additional, we believe, an additional 2,350 feet of 6-inch main, and their amendment is an additional 60,500. Based on the quantities and the complexity, there's some economy of scale because they're already doing some design work out there. Staff feels that we should include the neighborhoods while we're doing the 10-inch main line. There is a copy of their proposal with this staff report as attachment A. And on the back page, you can see an image of the line work that's going to be replaced. It doesn't, when you drive by Moonridge, it doesn't seem like that much linear footage, but there is a lot of loops back there and it does add up. So Mary and I and the rest of the staff feel it is, we'd be making a huge mistake to not include the Moonridge neighborhood. And we're proposing that you authorize the general manager to do a contract amendment with EKI for this additional work for the amount of $60,500 and do it all at one time. If you have any questions, I'm happy to reply.
All right, Chris, any thoughts?
No, I'm a big believer, and while we're at it, we'd be remiss in not doing that. It's just, it's going to be a hit. This wasn't anticipated, so I'm a little concerned about, spending more money as potentially revenues are about to drop due to upcoming rationing. But it's the right thing to do.
And Ken, go ahead with your comment.
How old are these pipes?
They were installed in 1999 by the developer.
It's so disappointing to me because I remember paying for this stuff once, and it's shocking to me. And when pipes are installed, there's nothing to go back to suppliers or the people that manufacture these pipes. I don't think we've ever tried to buy 20-year piping systems, and so it just feels so disappointing. I mean, this isn't very clever of me, but, I just feel sort of sick about it. And I wonder about that. There's no, I guess, it's in the ground, it tested right, and it lasted a year. You got it,
Yeah, and particularly in light of the fact that it's the same material we used for the El Granada pipeline. And ductile iron was sold to us as, the forever pipes. Yeah, so I'm equally disappointed.
James, do we know who made that pipe?
Off the top of my head, I do not know who made it. But we did do a corrosion study, and one of the indicating consistent factors was we had mildly to highly corrosive soil. So we are going to be looking at replacing this with the plastic pipe product. And I'm not sure if other areas of the district are as corrosive as this portion of the district. But after what Darren and I and the rest of the staff have seen, it's our professional judgment that maybe it isn't a bad batch of pipe, but maybe we just put the pipe into some hot soil, or rather the developer put the pipe into hot soil. And had we known that was happening, perhaps we would have chose plastic back then. And I share the disappointment and the sickness. This is not something I ever want to do, is replace pipe that's only 20 years old.
And just for the rest of the board's edification, ductile has a 75-year track record, but when it's in hot soil, it's typically wrapped in plastic encasement to keep the water circulation and break the galvanic cell that causes the corrosion. And if that has an added cost, it's not huge, but it does add to the cost of the ductile pipe. And so if that wasn't done, then we can anticipate that this pipe will continue to fail. And so plastic or replacing with plastic wrapped ductile, either one, would be absolutely the right way to move forward. Mm-hmm. But yeah, to have a pipe that's going after such a short period of time. James, since we're going to be, EKI is going to be, go ahead.
One more comment. I'm sorry, but
yeah,
just to follow up on what you're saying, then I would like to see our contract state that there has to be a soils engineering report prior to the placement of any of our pipe in CCWD district into soils until it's been justified or tested that it's not hot soil. I'm sure there's a chemistry, some type of a soils or a chemistry test that we can establish this. So I would just like to integrate that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but then I want to do something about it going forward, because gosh, that would crash our budget.
Yep.
Like no tomorrow.
James, the other thing, have we evaluated adding zincs? Because one of the other mitigations when you have this situation is you can pothole and weld a zinc anode along the sections of the pipe, and it's not the zincs don't last but 10 years, but you're only potholing down and replacing an individual zinc anode. And that is something that water utilities will do as a mitigation, but it can extend the life of the pipe extensively. Could we add that to part of EKI's consideration, that they evaluate whether we could? And I get it, this may be more of a Core Pro service, but maybe EKI does it as a subcontractor, or we have a contract already with Core Pro. Any thoughts?
I think EKI would be willing to do that. They're already evaluating different pipe materials. I'm not saying they would do a design as part of this scope. It's outside of the scope, but we can definitely discuss it with them. And I think we still need to do the design. And if we need a stopgap measure, I'd be happy to evaluate that approach.
Okay. All right.
I'm not enough of a corrosion expert to say it will work or won't work at this point.
Humorously, I'm kind of funny, but I actually have Far West business cards sitting on my desk right here for another job. So, yeah, it may be that we only have to replace some of it, and then we have to put anodes on all of it to keep it from continuing to fail. So at this point, Bob, comment, please.
Just a question. So, if we go with this amendment and do this, what kind of time frame we're looking at for actually doing this job, and what kind of number to actually do it? I'm just for the future planning stuff.
That's an excellent question.
What fiscal year? Like next fiscal year, or this one, and how much? Yeah.
We need to evaluate that, because we do have a number of projects, and right. We need to look at our cash flows. So, the one piece of this is, if we get a design, we'll have it ready. Right. We'll be shovel ready, basically. So
I was thinking that we have a lot on our plate. So this may be out a little bit in the future.
It may be out a few years.
Budget cycle, I understand. Will we be able to deal with whatever fallout there is, going forward until then. This could happen again and again, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's one of the risks here, is that we may have other failures going forward and deal with them as they come, correct?
Yeah, I will just say that, the staff was out there last week, as James said, with repairing a big leak out there. So
I'm telling you, I got it. There'll be big patches on the ground. Yeah, I see many of them up the street. So that's why I asked, because there were always patches appearing over time there. So that may happen going forward. The people there in Moonridge understand that we are in the process of looking to improve that in case they're concerned, because it happens regularly. They, probably get frustrated with the issue, I suspect. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, John, any thoughts? You're on mute. You get on mute, John.
You're on mute. Can't hear you.
You're still muted, John.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
My question's a little bit off. There's a lot of traffic on that road too, with the hundreds of cars there. And may I ask staff, does MidPen take care of the billing of the whole complex, or is it individual units that are metered? Just for general information for all of us of Moonridge.
I'll say that they actually, those units are individually metered, but they're all paid by MidPen.
Oh, nice.
Okay, thank you. I think a little refresher we needed on that there. And then I know the pipe has nothing to do with traffic flow, but there's hundreds of cars a day on that poor little road. Yeah. Okay, thank you, staff.
All right, thank you all for your comments. Do we have a motion?
We approve the amendment to the EKI agreement for the additional 60,800 or 60,600.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. We have a second. Denise, we'll take a roll call, please.
Director Muller,
Aye.
Director Coverdale,
Aye.
Director Michelson,
Yes.
Vice President Feldman,
Yes.
President Reynolds.
I'll say aye as well. Thank you.
And just to clarify, that was at a not to exceed price of $60,500.
Yes. All right. Now I'm double checking to make sure I haven't skipped anything.
Oh, I love it.
All right.
Okay.
Quarterly financial review from Mary.
Okay, well, we're very early in the year. We're 3 months down, so there are still lots of uncertainties, but I'll say that, we're ahead of our budget right now in terms of our operating revenue and our non-operating revenue. From an operating revenue perspective, as we have discussed, we have had higher irrigation and agricultural water sales. So that's put us above our budget on revenue. And it also, but I'm assuming those things will change as we move to stage 2 water shortage level. So I will say, and then our non-operating revenues, we had a ERAF tax revenue was higher than what we planned. So to the tune of 194,000. In terms of our expenses, I'll say it's still early, and a lot of our expenses are timing issues. So I'm going to say mostly we look like we have savings, but it's largely timing at this point. And I will say we've had some savings on the personnel front because we still have a couple open positions. So, in terms of our capital spend for the first quarter, we spent $1.4 million, and that's that. The big chunk of that, $1 million, is been work on our Nunes water treatment plant. Other our improvement programs. So, and there's a lot more to be spent this year on that program. So we're looking right now to our cash balance is around 11 million, but we are juggling and looking at how we're funding our CIP. When we entered this year, we talked about with our financial planning that we would be looking to get a loan. And so I'm in the process of starting to pursue that, but understanding that we have other pipeline projects that we had planned for this year as well. So we are making progress, hopefully, on the straw flower Pellucidas Creek project, and we'll be likely bringing you some CEQA ISM and D next month. So that's on our game plan. Hopefully we can do that project early next year. We also have the Grandview project that will be coming up as well. So, we do have money that we will be spending. So we'll be working with our finance committee on how we move forward with those projects. So any questions?
Anybody got any questions? All right, Mary, thank you very much. Our next topic, James, go to you for the Nunes water treatment plant upgrade.
Thank you, President Feldman. Nunes water treatment plant upgrade project update number 2. Last month, we had Fire and Loretta put together a few slides for a project update. As a reminder, Fire and Loretta are the construction managers for the project. They've been doing great. Contract data is on the second slide. I won't read all the numbers to you, but build to date is about $800,000. Construction progress, the next slide. Thanks, Mary. We are doing ongoing contract submittals, engineering reviews, ordering materials, RFIs. We've had 2 pours. They've done the footing and the floor of the new set basin. Very good progress this last month. And also they have successfully installed and pressure tested a raw water hydrant in front of the plant. And that was requested by Coastside Fire. It's going to be a nice thing to have there. Going to the next slide for the 3-week look ahead. They're doing the form work for the walls of the said basin. Later this month, we should be pouring those walls, and then we have to allow the concrete to cure and pass test before we can backfill against it. And they're looking at some filler work while we're waiting for the concrete to cure. Overall schedule, we're still anticipated to complete by August 2023. Very good progress so far. There has been some discussion about supply chain issues due to pandemic-related supply issues. We're monitoring that very closely, but we have not added any days to the contract just yet. And if you go to the last slide, you can see some pictures of the concrete pour. The one in the top middle is them pouring or getting ready to, they're pouring the footings there. And then the next one on the right is the pour after the pour of the slab, and some pictures of the hydrant installation. Ranger's been very good, responsive, and a lot of attention to detail. And another thing we've really noticed is they are looking out not just weeks, months ahead, and asking questions very far into the future, which we're really impressed with, and they're making a plan for other parts of the project outside of what they're working on now. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Go ahead, John. John, you're muted. You're still muted, John.
I'm trying to get it back. How's that better?
There you go. Yep, now we got you.
having some MacBook issues here. I'm just curious, is there a specific reason we cannot be using local concrete down the hill to be delivered to that construction project? Just wonder if there was a specific reason why we cannot use Andrini concrete.
My understanding is we didn't write into the contract that they had to use a local contractor for concrete. And I think there was a big price delta in terms of where they got the concrete and what we could do locally.
Yeah, it sounds kind of interesting when they're not even a mile away, but just my opinion. So thank you.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that, but there's not a whole lot we can do about that at this point.
One of the factors, and I haven't talked to the Andrinis about this, but it's something I've seen come up on other jobs, is that the state requires the concrete be National Sanitation Foundation, NSF approved. It's an accountability requirement for the materials that come into the concrete, and it can be tedious and hard to comply with. And that could be a factor that if the local plant wasn't used to supply, wasn't sort of routinely doing that the paperwork was more expensive than it was to drive it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Bob, did you have a comment?
No.
Okay, Chris.
No, thank you for the NSF clarification, because I too noticed the orange mixer. That was definitely a foreign orange.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's something I'm very frustrated about, because not a lot of concrete has proven to be a contaminant to water systems, but the state in their broad brush stroke has said, well, it touches the water, therefore somebody has to certify it and bless it. And that's not a trivial process to make sure that all your aggregate, all your materials, rocks, sand, and cement are all approved before you throw them into the batch. And so, yeah, don't get me started. Ken, why don't you tell us something new?
Well, one comment that I would like to make about that is, since we do a lot of local business and we believe in supporting local business, and we want to do our projects as sustainably as possible, it might be really a good idea to just reach out and, maybe we could have that written into a contract in the future as we pour more concrete, which we're going to. Maybe we could also reach out. We've got a former employee of part of the family. Maybe we could reach out and see if they couldn't or wouldn't be willing to make that move. And then I think that we've got a million good reasons to do it, not just that we respect them and do a lot of work with them, but it's more sustainable to drive it, from down the hill, the road that doesn't grow across their property, or we share an easement on a driveway with them going up the hill. So it's just the right thing to do environmentally. I think that, any contractor, if they can get a similar price with a similar product, is going to go our way. And I feel certain that the Andrinis would welcome the opportunity to have the business. If they don't, that's their choice. Then, it's not for us to control, but I think it might be nice to reach out and try. Anyway, that's nothing new.
All right. Thank you for keeping us updated, and it's really nice to hear that the quality of the work is going well and you're happy both with the contractor and the work that's being done. So thank you for keeping us in the loop as we watch that move forward. It's pretty exciting to have the plant both improved in reliability and refurbished to reduce operating expenses and upsets. So thank you for spearheading it. I realize that's a big lift for a district like ours, so thank you.
You're welcome. And I just want to remind all the board members they're welcome to come out for a field trip. Just no more than 2 at a time.
Yeah, and no footprints in the concrete, right?
Yeah. No
Come on, initials at least.
All right. James, you're going to tell us about your CPR and whether you were able to resuscitate Annie or whatever the name of the first aid CPR doll is.
Yeah, we had a retired fireman come out, and he did a fantastic job. Boots on the ground, lots of real simple, realistic tips on how to save a life. So I think staff really enjoyed it. It was the field staff, and we're going to try to get this gentleman back to train the office staff. I think they'll really enjoy him. We pulled Pillarcitos Well 3A for inspection and video of the casing. We're going to need to put a new conductor tube and pump in, and we are in the process of scheduling a scrubbing and cleaning of the screens. Road from Crystal Springs PRV vault to the SFPUC meter has been cleared and mowed. It looks good. We even had Jim Steele go out there and walk it after the dredging, and he thinks everything's looking very good up there. We had a new maintenance worker who we hired start today. We're very excited about this young man. I think he has a tremendous potential to be a long-term employee of the district. So we're really happy about welcoming him to the team. Lead and copper sampling is complete. We're going to be submitting the results to the state this week. Everything was within the range that it should be, so we don't have to do any extra sampling. And we will be sending notification letters to all the participants, thanking them for their help and a short explanation of the results for their household. And I'm sure we'll get some phone calls about that. Front office, new stairs, grading, and I skipped. New stairs, grading, and handrail installed around the Denison permanganate batch tank. This was a nice safety improvement. It was a little tricky getting up to the batch tank standing on the containment. So Sean and Todd designed a nice, better way to do that that's much safer. Changed out some hydrants. As you know, we're on Crystal Springs. The hardscape project, I believe we're waiting on handrails and benches at this point. It looks really good. I think Andrini's done a fantastic job out there. Cal OES PSPS grant, Blue One Energy has confirmed that the new diesel tank should be shipping in 4 to 6 weeks. We'll see what happens, but we have plenty of time. The deadline for completion is the 31st of March. They've been pretty responsive, and I'm surprised that they got such a quick ship period for that. Nuna's update, we already talked about that. EKI, Grandview, and the Highway 1 crossing design is 100% complete. We have a Caltrans encroachment permit. We're negotiating a few methods for how they want to see the backfill, and we're applying for an encroachment permit with the city of Half Moon Bay and working with them cooperatively. HDR, we are looking at the design now. We had a meeting today, and we're getting into the nitty-gritty of elevations and which pipes we're going to reuse and not reuse. So that's really taking off. And if you have any questions, I'm available.
Excellent. Thank you. Bob, any questions?
No, I'm good. Sounds like a good report. What's going on?
Chris?
No, thank you.
Ken?
No, thank you very much. Thanks, James. Great job.
John?
I'm fine. Thank you for the report.
Welcome.
All right. Thank you very much, James. Any directors have any closing comments?
Question for Mary. We're still on schedule for the 28th of October, and there will be forthcoming information about that strategic plan.
Yes, we're still going to have a special meeting on October 28th from 9 to 12. It will be a Zoom meeting. So, but we're we hope there'll be a good presentation and good dialogue. It's, we're entitling it a workshop, so.
Okay.
Good.
Just checking on the format. It'll be a Zoom meeting. Right?
All right.
And
very good. Ken, that's a wave goodbye from Ken. All right. Thank you all very much. We'll close
Chris.
What's that?
Did Cat joined the meeting? I'm sorry.
Oh yes, yeah. Chris's cat made an appearance. Well, the tail did anyways.
Well, my cat's been home alone for 3 days.
Dan,
He's happy to see me.
Okay, that's cool.
Excellent. All right.
I love it.
Bye.
All right. Thank you all. I appreciate all that you do. Take care. Good night.
Take care.
Everybody.